Welcome, my name is Jake Rayson. I am a forest gardener and a forest garden designer, and today is the first of 3 real-time live streams. So over the next 3 weeks, Wednesday the 2nd of June at 10 o'clock Cardiff time, Wednesday the 9th of June at 10 o'clock, and Wednesday the 16th of June, I am doing a half an hour live stream, and it is the kind of full kind of forest garden course, but the focus really is on sharing the information and then getting people involved into the Zoom chat afterwards. So this is a bit of an experiment. I think I've got one person. Hi, Sophie. I've got one person who signed up for the Zoom chat, which is absolutely fine. It doesn't have to be full or anything. But the idea is to have it far more interactive rather than just me talking in a live stream. It's like you join in. This is my forest garden. This is what I'd like to know. This is what I learned from the course. These are the questions I have about the course. And it's in 3 parts. Wednesdays, 10 o'clock, first 3 weeks in June. What I probably will do is to put them... I'll play around with the format, but I think a lot of people can't make it on a Wednesday, so I might well do it on a morning. So I might well put it into try an evening slot and maybe try a weekend slot as well, just to see how they go. And it is a kind of... It's a lot of the stuff I've already talked about and already covered, so you might want to switch off the live stream now if you've already seen all this before. But it's it's kind of, I just want to sort the format out so that we can get more people on board and get more kind of forest gardens created. That's the plan. That's the idea for it. I sure as hell ain't doing it for the money. So real-time course number 1 plan. Next one's going to be the canopy and crikey, what is the next one? Plan, structures, and oops, I've got it here. Oh, what am I doing? Plan. The next one is going to be structures, and then the final one is going to be cultivate. I'll come on to that in a second. Importantly, this is where this will always be here, forestgarden.wales/talks/realtime/plan. So when I am going to be creating a new website, and I will be changing the URLs for the final course, but this, if you ever need to reference it, it will always be at this URL, okay? So do bear that in mind. Second thing to bear in mind, press P to bring up the notes. So press the P, there we go, and that brings up notes here, which can be useful, actually. Maybe I should clone it. I ought to clone this. There we go. So... yeah, handy little bit of software that I've got. Is that going to go full screen? No, not that one. Oh, I don't know. No, I want this one over here. Right. So many buttons on these computers. I don't know how anyone gets any work done. So press P, brings up notes. Very useful because it's a very condensed course. So when you're creating a forest garden, I think it's always important. It is a process. You never finish. I'm sorry to tell you, you never finished. It's a process of creation, and it's ongoing. It's always ongoing. So don't worry about how long it takes. Don't worry about, is it right? It's for you and the inhabitants that you share your plot of earth with, and it's nothing to kind of get stressed about and it's got to be done in a certain way. It's just like whatever you've got, whatever resources you've got, whatever land you've got, whatever time you have, it doesn't really doesn't matter. It's the fact that you're doing it that is the important thing. And I think there's people there's Cindy on the Forest Garden group, and she's got a beautiful garden. And it's quite, relatively small garden, but absolutely crammed with really interesting plants. And she does a lot of structures and artwork, and just kind of jollies things up. And it's beautiful. It's really, really lovely. And I think it's a fantastic example of like a forest garden, but it's, of its space. So I think brilliant. Here we've got 2 1-acre forest gardens, and then there's like a 2-acre. I planted some nut trees, and there's a coppice, and there's woodland. It's a lot of bloody work to keep it up and running. And that's kind of different scale of things, and you approach it very, very differently. So there's not one size fits all. It's about the principles that you're bringing to it. And when you're creating your forest garden, what I would say is there's always I found it useful to divide it up into 3 different phases, and then the phases kind of keep on, they're in a spiral, and you get ever closer. I have got an illustration of it, but not here. 3 different phases. So the first phase is to plan your forest garden, and this is looking at the reasons why you're creating a forest garden, creating a survey, and then doing the design process, which is today. Next phase is the structure. So this is really kind of important, I think, to get in place, is to sort out your protection, sort out the structures, which includes windbreaks and dead hedges, which are like a windbreak made from dead material, living windbreaks, nurse trees, which are like trees, shrubs planted in front of trees to shelter them. And then it's like the productive vegetable area, and then putting in your canopy layer. The shrubs and the ground cover, they're more work. I would say do the first bit, do everything like the structural stuff first of all, putting in polytunnels and ponds and seating areas and all that kind of stuff. All the kind of groundworks and the planting the canopy layer and the windbreaks, and then stage by stage, working from the house outwards, start the cultivation process, start the process of preparing the ground, putting the ground cover in, putting the shrubs in. And so kind of 3 distinct phases, and then that way I find if I'd done it that way myself, or ourselves, it would be easier, be more manageable, really. And it kind of that applies to whatever size garden you have. I mean, obviously things are going to be different for different people. Okay, and so these are things to remember: plan, structure, and cultivate. That's the 3 different phases. So why forest gardens, and what is a forest garden? Oh, and I forgot to get my book down. Hold on a second. Why forest gardening? Well, and what is a forest garden? First things first, I would say, buy this book. Where's my face gone? Hold on. Buy this book. This is a book, Creating a Forest Garden by Martin Crawford. It's brilliant. It kind of covers a load of plants, and it covers the process of creating a forest garden as well. So it's a fantastic reference. I'm always kind of dipping into it and looking stuff up. So really, really, really recommend that. Totally recommend that. That is the course book. So get hold of a copy of that, and it's so worth it. But why forest garden? Really, is because of the ecological and the climate emergency that we are in. And this is a picture from Australia, Australia's summer before last, I think it was. Terrible wildfires. They've got a plague of mice at the moment because the wildfires killed the predators. Now they're talking about putting down poison to kill the mice, but that's going to kill a whole lot of wildlife. It's a shit show, not to put too fine a point on it. And this is across the globe as well. And not enough is being done globally to sort this. So this is why, creating a forest garden addresses the climate emergency in 2 different ways. Firstly, it looks at the ecological emergency by creating habitats for wildlife. And then it's also providing food as well. And it's connecting people with nature again. So that's the kind of idea. This is why climate emergency is why I got into forest gardening, but there's a whole range of other benefits as well for doing it. And a very quick definition of a forest garden, this is kind of because this is a very quick course, is an edible ecosystem. So you're growing edible crops in a wildlife garden. So remember that edible ecosystem, you want to make an ecosystem that is self-sustaining, and this is how you're doing it. You're growing the edible crops, just so happen to be edible, the crops that you're growing in a wildlife garden that's supporting a whole load of diverse range of wildlife. And then the characteristics of a forest garden. So what we're doing with the forest garden is we're balancing it on the edge of a woodland. So it's woodland edge. It's not actually forest. It's not like deep dark forest, because you can't grow such a diverse. You can't grow so many different types of plants in that situation. So it sits on the edge of a woodland, and then you can see the further right you go, over here towards arable, the further right, then the more fragile it is, and the more input is required. Whereas the further left you go, there's less input, and it's less fragile. So this is with a forest garden. This is what we're aiming at. And as I said before, what you're trying to do is to create a stable ecosystem, so that it's the garden itself which is providing its own nutrients and its own pest control. And you plant things like comfrey and nitrogen fixers like alders and members of the pea family, sea buckthorn, autumn olive, and they provide the nutrients and for the whole garden. So you're not importing anything; it's self-sustaining. And then you're providing a lot of flowers and wildflowers, preferably, and native plants where possible, which then encourage the wildlife so that wildlife is in balance. So you might get some pests coming in, but generally it's in balance. So it's not like a monocrop. It's a whole load of different. Diversity really is the kind of key word here. There's a diversity of species that you're growing, and it kind of supports itself. And it's productive. Now, whatever way, how you want to measure productive really is up to you. But like in terms of food, in terms of produce like canes or poles or firewood, or it's a beautiful space that you can chill out in, or you can do your exercises in, or there's a whole range of different ways of defining productive. But that's essentially what you're trying to do. And really just to kind of emphasize again, it's the wildlife aspect of it, because this is what we are trying to do, is to encourage wildlife into the garden. We want things, strange though it may sound, we want things to eat the plants. If something isn't eating your plants, you're doing it wrong, but not too much. Yeah, so it's getting that balance right. And as part of this is use native plants where possible. And the reason for this, to use native plants, is because native plants have co-evolved with the wildlife over millennia as well. This is not like... there's an awful lot of discussion about using natives in gardens, and in pro and against and all the rest of it. But generally, native plants are eaten by local insects and are generally better and support a wider range of insects than non-native plants. And that's the kind of general rule. It's a rule of thumb. It's not true, and there's various ways of looking at it and all the rest of it. But that's why we suggest, or I always say, use native plants where possible. Then the layers is, as you can see from this, this is a sketch, an illustration from Martin Crawford's book. You have a canopy layer. You've got small trees. You've got shrubs. And then you've got herbaceous perennials, and then you've got ground cover, and you're using all the space, the three-dimensional space. It's not just a single crop in a single space. You're using the height at different levels, and you can even like using root crops as well. But it's all within one space. Which is kind of interesting. It is interesting, and it is for me. It really is a work in progress. I'm trying to create a sustainable, perennial polytunnel at the moment. And it's and mixing it with annual plants too, and trying out different species and trying to use the space more effectively. And it's kind of interesting, really, really interesting thing to do. And generally as well, in a forest garden, you're using perennial plants, not exclusively, but you're not like in a market garden where you almost exclusively use, pretty much exclusively grow annual plants, because you've got a high turnover, you want to create a lot of crops, it's a commercial operation. In a forest garden, you're using perennial plants, and they are far more resilient, and they're generally more, perennial plants are generally more productive, like in terms of the amount of maintenance and care that they need. And they're better for you generally as well, more nutritious. Okay, so guidelines. I have kind of 4 basic guidelines. So if you're going to take anything away from today, these are the 4 kind of key features that I whoopsie. No, come back. Oh, here, hold on a second. These are the 4 kind of guidelines that I like to always bear in mind when you're creating a forest garden. So the first thing, always, and I'm still doing it now, is protect the plants that you're growing. And this means, most importantly, is protection from the wind. Stop the wind from coming into the garden. You grow windbreak hedges. And the reason for doing this is that plants will, if they're protected, they will grow better. I've got Italian alder in the forest garden, and I didn't put a dead hedge. A dead hedge is like a just temporary structure made out of old branches, basically. I didn't put a dead hedge in front of the Italian alder. I've replaced it 3 times, I think. I'm on to my 3rd Italian alder in that spot, very exposed spot. Put a dead hedge in, absolutely fine, growing very, very well. And then there's a tree just a bit further down, only about 15 meters away from it, an Italian alder, and it's now about 5 or 6 meters tall after 5 years. It's makes a hell of a difference. So protection, and this also extends to kind of looking after things in terms of the polytunnels to provide more protection and provide extra heat. Cold frames if you're growing stuff from seed. Making a heated propagation bed. You want to protect your plants until they're established enough to look after themselves. So that goes across the whole, the whole kind of gamut of protection. Spacing is really, really important as well. And this is like the key thing, is like your trees. What people will do, they'll put a tree in and they go, I'll say, what rootstock is that tree? How big does that tree grow? And I go, oh no, it's just a tree and it's little. And then you find out they put a beech tree. And for example, a client wanted a beech tree. So I looked at a beech tree, and like a full-grown beech tree, I think is a diameter of 25, can't be right, 25 meters. Yeah, I think it's 25 meters. A fully grown, then it will take years to get there. But that's how big a beech tree is. So I said to the client, no, yeah, it's a bit big for your garden, so I wouldn't have a beech tree in it. And likewise with fruit trees are normally grown on a rootstock, and they're grafted onto a rootstock, and the rootstock dictates the height and the vigor and the diameter of the tree. And you want to make sure you get the right rootstock and the right size tree for your situation. Because otherwise, if you have them all crowded in, they'll shade everything else out. So you need to have the edge of woodland effect. You need to have a gaps in between them, and the rule of thumb is it's 1/4 to 1/2 of the average canopy diameter. Let me zoom in. Can I zoom in on here? Oh, look at that, I can. 1/4 to 1/2 of average canopy diameter. Okay, so bear that in mind as well. And then ground cover, always keep the ground covered. In the early stages, you're covering it with bark or wood chip, and then putting in a temporary mulch like white mustard, and then you're planting a permanent ground cover. Ground covers, plants grow at different rates. So first of all, so ground cover, ultimately you want to have it like a thick mat of a ground cover plant. Wood chip does not, by the way, you can use wood chip as a mulch. It doesn't rob nitrogen out of the soil unless you dig it in. So don't dig in, just put it on the surface. It's absolutely fine. There we go. And then nutrients, calculate a nutrient budget. It's in Martin Crawford's book, how to do that. But basically just put in enough what are called system plants that provide nutrition, like comfrey, and nitrogen fixing plants like sea buckthorn, autumn olive, any member of the alder family, Scotch broom. There's a range of different nutrient plants as well. And then work out what type of soil you have, how acid and how alkaline it is, and what kind of soil it is, whether it's a clay, a loam, or a kind of sandy soil. Okay, so those are the 4 guidelines. We'll keep coming back to them. Now survey. First thing you want to do is to create a map. Now, so first thing you want to do is create a map. I haven't got any of this paper to hand. I had a pad of it, but I don't really use it very much. I generally use stuff on the computer. So this is, you can either, I'll come on to this in a minute, but you can either create a plan on paper. I would recommend using A3 5mm squared paper. So that's kind of big paper, 5mm squares. Graph paper is a bit too fussy. And you can see from here, this is, whoa, don't scroll. This is oh crud god, this is the paper. Oops, what have I done? There we go. So that's the paper, and it can just be a kind of rough sketch so you get an idea of where stuff is going. And the key thing with any map is to work out the scale. So how, how big is it on the paper? You've got to scale it down. Obviously, you can't do a one-to-one size. When you're creating a map, it's just a useful place to put information down. So when you come to your observations, ka-chung, you can write these observations down. Now, I have created a checklist. Where's my checklist gone? Which is downloadable. Checklist PDF. You can download it. So it run through it. I'm not going to go through the entire lot because there's just so much. But it basically is looking at the position of your site and the elements of that site as well. The key thing when you're putting plants into a garden is it the right place for that plant? Does it get enough sun? Does it get enough water? Is it the right soil? Yeah. So you might go, oh, I'm going to put a bog myrtle, and I put it in full sun, and it's too dry, and it's not particularly happy where it is. It really needs to go. I should have guessed this from the name. It really needs to go in a bog where it'd be much happier. Don't make the mistakes I make. Make sure that have a look, do a bit of research. The plants you're putting in, will they like it there? I don't know. For example, sweet chestnut doesn't like clay acid. Well, it doesn't like clay soil. It prefers a kind of freer, looser soil. So don't put like a wet clay reed filled area. Don't put a sweet chestnut in there because it won't be happy. It won't grow. You'll have to move it. So those are the three things. So you got to look at the sun, how much light they get, and where it depends on the position of your land, where the light is on how much sun that particular spot gets. So sun rises in the east, obviously, and it goes in the south, and then you get more sun during the summer because of the angle of the earth, the tilt of the earth. In the summer, you get more sunlight, and the sun is higher. In the winter, the sun is lower, so you get less sunlight. So you can work out. There's a really useful app called Sun Surveyor, and it tells you can figure out how much light a particular spot will get and whether you should be putting a plant there or not. And then have a look at what's already there, because you don't want to be grubbing up hawthorn. If it's a hawthorn, for example, is a really good wildlife plant, and you might be able to incorporate it in. So it's always about using what you've got and working with the land that you have and working with the features that you've got, and minimizing the amount of work that you're actually doing to shift it. Because what we're talking about doing is just shifting to a different balance from the balance that it's in at the moment, whether that's like a vegetable garden which is super high maintenance and has loads of compost put on it and is constantly being weeded and hoed, or whether it's a piece of grassland, but we're going to shift it to the edge of woodland. That's the whole purpose, and we want to do it in as kind of efficient a way as possible. So look at the features, download this checklist, and then have a read through it. I won't go through it in any more detail. So position, elements, what features are already there, and what your situation is, how you sit in the landscape itself. So that's a photograph of the Kerry Valley, by the way. And then, really importantly, is you make a wish list. What do you want? What do you want in your garden? I think it's really important. How are you going to use the space? And this, for me, is the kind of the attraction of design, is because you're trying to figure out, you're designing a space. It's not like designed by accident or designed by nature. There's a human intervention in there, and you're trying to figure out how to use a space and how it fits in with all the other elements. So make a wish list. Say, what would you like to see? Wildlife is always top of the list for me, and I think should be for any kind of forest gardener. So you want to encourage insects into your garden. You want insects to eat your plants, yeah? Preferably not the plants you want to eat, but that might happen. You want water to attract insects and to attract other plants. You get insects in because insects are kind of, plants are fungi and plants are the foundation of the food web, but then also insects, and then the birds that eat the insects and the mammals that eat the insects. And so you want to get all that diversity and that kind of biomass into your garden. And water is a fantastic way. So like a wildlife is a new wildlife pond. I think I've got the photo of Flickr, and you want to get the water in there. Is a really good way of attracting wildlife. Yesterday I saw a golden, and I haven't looked it up yet. There's a type of dragonfly called a chaser, which has a fat squat body like a cigar, really bizarre. We had blue, I can't remember what they're called, darters or chasers. I think it's chaser. And then I saw a golden one, like a yellow golden one yesterday. Had some friends around to give them some plants. And it was really, really amazing. That was down by the pond. Nutrients, again, work out your nutrient, what kind of nutrients you can put into the garden to encourage the growth. And seating. There's a brilliant way of doing this, which is, it's called, a little phrase, cocktails and coffee and cocktails. It's a coffee and cocktails kind of project. So what you do, you say, where does the sun rise in the garden, and where is the closest place you can grab your cup of coffee, and where is the closest place that you can go and have your morning coffee in the sun, whatever time of year when you can sit outside in the sun. And you say, where can I have my coffee? What gets the early morning rays, and where is it closest to the house? And then make that into a seating area facing the sun. And then likewise, cocktails, you kind of probably guessed by now, cocktails is where you go with your pina colada. It's the end of the day, you've been very, very busy pulling up yet more bramble or whatever it is, and you said, oh, fantastic, fancy a cocktail. Where can I go? Facing west, facing the setting sun. What is the warmest place and the kind of the nicest place to kind of sit down and have my pina colada? So the coffee and cocktail kind of process. And then to help you with the process is Plants for Future. This is like the single best list of useful plants. This is just a screenshot because my computer's so slow. This is the single best resource for plants. So go through Plants for Future and see what kind of plants you want to use. And then Pinterest. I use Pinterest for collecting pictures. So onto design, and that's half past already. Goodness me. Design. Right then. Design. This, yeah, I love this. This is centuries, millennia of human practice and endeavour, condensed into one single slide. And design really is about purposefully putting things in the right place for humans and others. And I've got a brilliant book, and I wanted to show you, and I've forgotten where it is. Oh, bum. No, don't know where it is. Okay, book is called How Buildings Learn by Stuart Brand, and it's about living in how buildings change because of the way that they're used. And I think very much that gardens are the same, that you live in a garden and you use it for different purposes. Yesterday, talking to my friend Dan, and he likes the carport, and it's concrete, and it's like butt ugly metal uprights and a plastic roof, and it's just like butt ugly, and the most useful space in one of the most useful spaces in the whole of the house, and it's great, and it's just like, how are you going to use the space, and what do you use the space for? And I'm using it as like a kind of propagation area for my seeds, and I'm building cold frames in there. And yeah, it's just like there's a shed there with a heated propagation bench, and there's all these things going on. It's how you use that space. So Stuart Brand, How Buildings Learn, very applicable ideas, are very applicable to gardens as well. And it's this process of putting things in the right place for humans. I've added this last night, for humans and others. But it's not just about how you want to use that space. It's also you're thinking about, going back to the beginning, edible ecosystems. How do you support wildlife and that diverse range of wildlife as well? So it's not just you, it's how you fit in with everything else. There is a brilliant book as well. Where is it gone? Annie Kelsey. Hold on a second. Where is it gone? Someone's had my book away. I can't believe that. Anyway, Annie Kelsey's got a book which is called The Garden of Equal Delights, and it's about how forest gardener fits in within a forest garden. It's not like top of the pyramid. That's kind of old school thinking. It's very much part of the ecosystem. Yes, I could talk about it for ages. So you can design on paper, and the key thing. So going back to this is. I would start off with something like this, where it's a grid, A3 5mm grid. You can design on paper. You can add observations to the paper, add your wish lists to the paper, and you create circles for trees at the right scale. and then you put the trees down. You try the trees in different positions, because the trees really are the most important thing to sort out. And then you can design on computer. So what I've done is to where is that gone then? QCAD. Oh, that's all right. Yeah, there's a bit of software called QCAD, which is this software here, and I'm gonna do live. I'll do it live. Take a satellite screenshot. So I'll just show you a satellite screenshot. So I've used whatever. Oh no, it's gone. Oh no, it doesn't matter. There we go. So take a satellite screenshot, and I've done one of here using Bing Maps, and then you measure. This is a whole other. This is just, I'm just touching the surface of this. So don't worry if you don't get this. I've got various other live streams about creating a map. This is much better. I mean, this is also really good for creating. You learn CAD if you want to do more than one map. If you don't, stick with pen and paper. That's fine. But if you're doing more than one forest garden design, I'd say kind of learn it. It's worth the investment if you're planning on doing multiple designs. So you do a screenshot and you work out how many pixels there are per meter. I always get this wrong way around. Meters per pixel. So that's, oh goodness me, it's all going on. So that's 10 meters. There are 58. So 10 meters at 58 pixels. And I'll show you what you do. So I'm going to create a new, I'm just diverting here. I'll create a new document. I've got a template that I've created, which is online. I did a live stream last week, so if you are interested in learning about CAD, you can watch that one. It's basically covering the stuff that I'm doing here, and it has all my layers in. It's got like north, and it's got the scale in there and everything. And I'll just save it. Save it on the desktop. One day, maybe one day, map, and I shall call it map, and you call it 0.1 begin, and I'll save that in there, and I import the image, and this really is just to show you how kind of simple it is. This is a screenshot that I've done of the satellite. Oops. Import the image. Let's zoom out. And then rather like with this is our land here. So rather like with the paper map, you need to work out the scale. With a computer map, you just need to work out how many on the screenshot that you've done. You need to work out how many meters there are per pixel. And I've got there's 10 meters and it's 58 pixels, and which is 0.172 something or other meters per pixel. So I select that. And hold on, I remember this last time. There's in the properties for the map, there's a width factor. So I'll just copy and paste that number in there, and that's it. Now, whoops, whoa. Sorry, getting a bit lost. This is so easy to get lost in CAD. It's brilliant. Zoomity zoom all the way around. Oh, it's because it's slow. There's a Michael Rosen book with a bear who lives by the beach. He goes into town and it's zoomity zoom. And now it's kind of quite brilliant. I can put circles on there for trees. So this is at scale. So if I create a circle, let's go and create it in the plants and create a circle, and I can create a circle there. And that circle, let's say it's 25 meters diameter. That's how big a beech tree gets. So you can see here, it's pretty massive. That's a fully grown beech tree. I think it's about 25 meters diameter. So that's the idea. You use circles for trees, and then you kind of work out the right spacing for them and the right position for them, and the fact that they don't shade out anything else. God. Okay, so next then, with circles for trees, and I've made a very, very quickly, if you are interested in CAD, I have made I haven't got it here. I made a CAD file with a whole load of circles on of existing plants. Oh, that was the point as well. Cool. So design order. I won't go again. Create paths, divide, work out where you want to walk. So when you're designing, you kind of do the plan. You've got your wish list. You've got your features that you want in there, and then you work out where you want to go. Where is the polytunnel going? Where is the path to the polytunnel? Where is the pond going? Where is the path to the pond? Where is the vegetable area? How do you access the vegetable area? So create paths, and then that naturally creates different areas. And then when you come on before, if you cast your mind back, there's the three phases of creating a forest garden: plan, structure, and cultivate. By making the areas, it's easy to say, okay, we'll put the structure in, windbreaks and canopy layer, and those areas you cultivate them one at a time from the house outwards. So you can just leave them however they are, maintain them, make sure they don't get out of hand, and then work on them when you're ready to work on them. So it's nice and kind of nicely done, rather than trying to do everything at once. I try to do everything at once. It's very difficult. Attached structures, what does that mean? Oh, I think put the polytunnel on and things like that. So there we go, design order. So just to kind of recap then, the reference, Martin Crawford's Creating a Forest Garden, get that book. Forest Garden spreadsheet, this is an online sortable spreadsheet which I have created, and it, where is it? It is here. This is a screenshot because my computer's too slow. So you can sort them. This is like lists every single plant which is in this book, and then you can look at the plant and get the attributes for it. I did it with a couple of other people, Ollie Boone and Chris Day. And yeah, so it's a really, really useful resource, a very good companion with that book. Oops, hold on, sorry. And then, oh, there it is. Plants for a Future, very, very good reference, pfaf.org. RHS Plant Finder, kind of good for other plants which aren't in the Plants for a Future, and it has a native filter, which means you can get plants, you can see if they're native or not. And then Orange Pippin is a really good fruit tree reference for different varieties of apple, pear, plum, cherry, and that kind of thing. Okay, there we go. I hope that's useful. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to zoom right back to the top again and then just put that climate emergency. Where is it? There. Yeah, plan, structure, cultivate. And next week I will be going on to structure and looking at creating windbreaks and dead hedges. Love dead hedges. And the canopy layer. And then after that I'll be looking at cultivating area by area. So I hope that's useful. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll hopefully see you next week. Bye bye.